That moniker often made people think that he had grasped time-related laws, but he actually didn't know any of them, he simply liked the sound of it. Another middle-aged man nodded and said, "We have to stand together if we want to hold on until the end." His nickname was Hades, which was sort of related to Onal's Zeus. However, they weren't as strong as Hades and Zeus were. "We're old friends. Father Time, focus on defense. Shennung's 3 punches and I will take care of the offense. Hades, you'll be responsible for commanding and enhancing us." "New member, what are you good at?" asked a woman, whose face was covered in mist. Her nickname was Queen of the Night. She was originally going to call herself Goddess of the Night, but since the leader's name was Divine Lady of the 9 Heavens, she simply changed it to Queen. Shennung's 3 punches was a muscular man whose nickname fitted him perfectly. His secret technique was of the boxing kind, few people of his level could resist his 3 punches. "I can do a lot of things," said Suaping honestly. It was naturally a better choice to fight in a team than to fight alone. "Is that so? You can cover enhancement and reinforcement along with Hades. Right, you're obviously good at disguising. What about your perception? If possible, you can detect any danger that comes our way," suggested Queen of the Night. Suaping nodded. "Okay. High-level senses could detect the enemy's level and predict their moves. It was possible to sense the enemy's attack before it was even launched. He would be the eyes of the team." While they discussed, some people roared at a distance. "What are you doing, guys from the Alliance of Stars? Go! They want to take advantage of us. I think we should kill them first." They raised their heads, only to find that it was the Thousand Feathers Alliance who had conflicts with their leader. After hearing that, the other champions looked at the Alliance of Stars in an unfriendly manner. All of them were fighting, while the Alliance of Stars was watching the show. Suaping and the others turned cold once they heard the Thousand Feathers Alliance's instigation. Father Time sneered and said, "Is the Thousand Feathers Alliance really attacking? You're also saving your strength. Everybody knows that your alliance is always the most cunning." "Exactly. Come here, Thousand Feathers Alliance, let's have a fight and see who's stronger." Shennung's 3 punches bumped his fists and declared proudly. Nearby, the champions of the Uhuang Alliance who were being attacked shouted loudly, "Alliance of Stars, we'll help you finish off the sons of Bai *Ches of the Thousand Feathers Alliance. We're coming too. We'll help you." The champions of the alliance that had made the proposal also wanted to join the winning side. Hearing that, Suaping and the others felt like vomiting blood. "You can hardly keep yourselves safe. Can you please keep away from us?" As he expected, the other people looked at the Alliance of Stars more and more angrily, and were about to attack it instead. "The Alliance of Stars intends to cooperate with them? Let's kill them first. They're so arrogant that they call themselves Demon Lords and Divine Ladies. That's too outrageous. Attack them." The men of the Thousand Feathers Alliance charged at the Alliance of Stars first. "Those sons of Bai *Ches are truly shameless." Hades spat on the ground and said, "Everybody, set up a formation and kill them all. Die! Spare no mercy to those bastards. I've been angry with them for a long time. They have no respect for Shennung's 3 punches at all. I'm going to shatter their teeth." Everybody summoned their battle pets. For a moment, the pets in the advanced phase and even peak of the star state stepped out and unleashed a daunting aura. Some pets glowed and merged with their masters, and some released the power of laws towards the champions of the Thousand Feathers Alliance. The space of the small world was restricted and couldn't be torn apart. However, the outburst of the power of laws unleashed a horrifying energy, tantamount to nuclear explosions. The high temperature and the radiation were enough to kill some of the Ocean State battle pet warriors. Seeing that they had gone on a rampage, Suaping didn't hold back. He summoned the little skeleton, the dark dragon hound, the inferno dragon, and the white-scaled vast sky thunderous dragon. Having been trained by Suaping, the white dragon already had star state compatibility and had reached the peak of the void state. Merge. Suaping merged with the little skeleton and then with the white-scaled vast sky thunderous dragon. Of his 4 pets, the young dragon was the weakest. Although it had star state strength, it could be wounded or even killed in such a scenario. After all, its opponents were all in the advanced phase or even the peak of the star state. Boom! Suaping unleashed a powerful aura after the dual fusion. Father Time and the other people in front of them also merged with their own pets. They rose to the peak of the star state and each of them was as brilliant as the Sunday. Take this punch, roared Shennong's 3 punches, who had a muscular body. He suddenly punched, and the space trembled. His fist glowed, surrounded by 8 laws. It was so powerful that the other members of the alliances were shocked. 8 laws had been combined in one fist. It was very powerful. Suaping solemnly realized that Shennong's 3 punches had fused the power of laws in a neat way, leaving nothing to waste. The power of his fist was even greater than that of Hell of 4 Dimensions sword technique. He was just one of the experts in the advanced phase of the star state. The 5 champions of the 1,000 Feathers Alliance didn't give in either. They instantly unleashed sword and spear auras to destroy the punch. Enhancement, Astral Power Spring. Enhancement, Speed. Enhancement, Rage. Hades, who stood at the rear of the team next to Suaping, instantly controlled his battle pet to use enhancement skills on the fighters. Very soon, they were further strengthened, almost to the peak of their level. Seeing that, Suaping used the enhancement skills too. Although he had never specifically learned enhancement skills, he had seen a lot of them in his battles and had grasped some. Enhancement, God of Wind. Enhancement, Skin of Dragon Scales. Enhancement, Thousands of Eyes. Enhancement, Killing Intent. Suaping quickly took action and launched his share of enhancement skills. All of the other people felt that they were much lighter, and solid dragon scales that contained the God of Lightning's power grew on their skin. When they were enhanced by the killing intent, Shennong's 3 punches, Father Time and the Queen of Night began to feel passion erupting from their hearts. Their thirst for blood was triggered, and they almost couldn't wait to unleash all their power and tear everything into shreds. Apart from them, the pets they had summoned, which had been ready to attack, all showed bloodshot eyes because of the killing intent enhancement. I feel like I cannot conceal the demonic energy in my body any longer. I really want to kill someone. Kill the bastards of the 1,000 Feathers Alliance. All of them looked aggressive and exasperated. Their daunting auras left the champions of the 1,000 Feathers Alliance stunned and cold. They felt that the guys from the Alliance of Stars were obviously determined to fight and kill them. All of them were champions fighting for someone else's sake. Do they really have to try so hard? Hard? Roar! The 3 of them dashed out brutally and aggressively. Their eyes were filled with brutality, but they were also clear deep in their hearts. They didn't really lose control. Instead, they had adjusted themselves to be at their best status with Suaping's enhancements. Shennong's 3 punches was the first to charge out. He had practiced multiple laws, and he attached them to his fist. His punches were so shockingly powerful that many observers outside the battlefield were astounded. Queen of the Night and Father Time didn't wait to make a move. They had both been focusing on one law, however, they had grasped them to such a deep level that they could even influence other people's laws. Darkness blinds you just like light does. Law of Darkness, Devour. Queen of the Night raised her hands, and rays of light disappeared around her. Darkness rolled like waves. All senses and laws were restricted in the darkness. Only she could sense and control everything. It was the upgraded version of a law, and had almost transformed into a small world. If she made further progress, she would be able to establish a dark world of her own, based on that law. When the dark field was unfolded, the champions of the 1,000 Feathers Alliance instantly lost their senses. All wore grave expressions. An expert stepped forward and roared, "Law of Fire, Melting Sun." Noises of burning fire resounded against the void. A hole was left in the darkness by the burning fire, which illuminated the faces of the members of the Thousand Feathers Alliance. One of them was as brilliant as the sun, and scorching vines were appearing on his body. His body matched his law of fire, allowing him to unleash power that was as great as that of Queen of the Night. He soon removed the darkness around him, before he charged at her with a giant burning axe. He had also been enhanced by various skills, which made him unbelievably strong. Are they all in the advanced phase of the star state? It's so unbelievable that they're making use of the power of laws so skillfully. Are they fighting for the tree of laws? I don't think we have a share in that, do we? What are you thinking? The tree of laws will definitely be carved up by those alliances. Rogues like us would never get a share. Look, a pet has just perished. Oh my god, isn't it a star-swallowing dragon that was in the advanced phase of the star state? Many rogue star state experts gathered outside the battlefield. They kept on commenting on the fierce battles while feeling jealous and helpless. The ultimate treasure was right in front of their eyes, yet they couldn't have it. That feeling was truly frustrating. The new members' enhancement skills are so good. They even boosted the advanced star state pets. He's definitely an advanced star state expert. He did a great job concealing his true power. How did Zeus make friends with such a big shot? To think we treated him a bit coldly when he greeted us earlier. Look, the Huang Alliance is about to be screwed. The members of the Alliance of Stars whispered about the battles and felt rather scared by the intensity. Every star state warrior had a handful of powerful pets, some even had 10. The small world began to feel crowded since all the pets were out. The outburst of skills and laws had also caused spectacular views everywhere. Someone was taken out 3 minutes after the battle started by the Star Lord backing him. They saved their champions with their domination over the small world. At the same time, the champions lost the qualification to continue fighting. The leading girl crossed her arms and commented while she observed the battle proudly, "Humph! You think the worthless scumbags of the Thousand Feathers Alliance are qualified to compete with us? You're just a bunch of shameless men who try to mislead others." The leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance sneered and said, "Let's see how much longer your idiotic, arrogant subordinates can endure. All of you, assist the Alliance of Stars. Knock out the Thousand Feathers Alliance even if you lose," shouted the leader of the Huang Alliance. His words reached his remaining 3 champions in the battlefield. They were still struggling to resist attacks. They didn't know what to say after hearing that. "We can hardly resist our opponents. How could we attack?" However, since their leader had just said they didn't have to seek victory, they could just as well try their luck. "What's your problem?" The Thousand Feathers Alliance nearly vomited blood after hearing that. "Why do you have to take me to hell with you? Although I don't like the morons of the Alliance of Stars, I dislike the scoundrels like you even more," declared the leader of the Huang Alliance proudly. He obviously had no respect for him. The leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance was rendered speechless. It was true that birds of a feather flock together. Those 2 groups of morons had finally reached a consensus on a subject. Damn it! The leader girl, however, raised her eyebrows coldly. "Who are you calling morons? Do you think I can't easily beat you up?" "You just admitted it," said the leader of the Huang Alliance with a snort. "You should thank me, or I can easily ask them to attack the Alliance of Stars. Let them try. Do you think I'm scared of you?" The leader girl didn't give in, at all. The leader of the Huang Alliance grew solemn and said, "Since you don't appreciate my kindness, don't blame me for being brutal." He was about to give another command, when he suddenly changed his expression. His men had been surrounded by the other factions when they attacked the Thousand Feathers Alliance. They would get killed if he didn't rescue them. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The only 3 survivors, as well as their battle pets, were rescued by the leader of the Huang Alliance. Ha, ha, seeing that, the leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance burst into laughter. The leader girl chuckled too and said teasingly, "Come on, let your men show me what brutal means you have." The leader of the Huang Alliance's cheeks twitched, but he only snorted in the end. He would only embarrass himself even if he kept on speaking. There would be a chance to get back at them later. The leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance, on the other hand, suddenly changed his expression, and the man who had just used melting sun appeared next to him. The man was heavily wounded at the moment, with blood on his lips. "Haha! He's truly an idiot for choosing to take Sheneng's 3 punches attacks the hard way. You think your men are any smarter than mine?" The leader girl laughed after seeing that. They had been watching the situation in the small world while they talked. The man would have been killed if the leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance hadn't intervened. "That guy is from the Fist God planet, isn't he? He's indeed something." The leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance became cold. The Fist God planet was a Tier 1 planet in the Federation. It was 1,000 times bigger than Rhea. Rhea, on the other hand, was dozens of times bigger than the Blue Planet. An Ascendant State expert emerged on the Fist God planet and became its master. It was one of the major forces in the Federation. "Your eyes are keen enough to see through his fist technique." The leader girl chuckled. The battle in the small world became even fiercer. 5 minutes later, another pair of champions from the Thousand Feathers Alliance were rescued, and Queen of the Night became the first loser of the Alliance of Stars. 8 minutes later all the champions of the Thousand Feathers Alliance were gone as the other alliances had ganged up on them. While the Star Lords outside were talking and laughing, the rule of the jungle dominated the small world. Whoever got wounded first would get killed. "Ha ha ha! You thought the Thousand Feathers Alliance could laugh to the end? Do you feel like crying now? I'm so happy." The girl laughed happily when the Thousand Feathers Alliance lost the qualification, and the leader of the Huang Alliance also mocked, "I thought you would have endured longer. You should have quit the competition earlier to watch the show." The girl giggled and gloated, "They're also heavily wounded. How pathetic. They're truly unlucky to have you as their leader." The Thousand Feathers Alliance's leader had the gloomiest face, but he couldn't come up with anything to say in response. He soon concealed his fury and sneered. Another pair of Star Lords were quietly watching the battle on the other side of the battlefield. When they heard the jokes and laughter from the opposite side, they solemnly looked at the source and then speechlessly withdrew their gazes. It was hard to imagine that the conversation was among several Star Lords, they were too childish. The leader of the Alliance of Stars seems to have a powerful background, but she doesn't have much worldly experience. Humph, they're just 3 idiots. They have no idea that the Tree of Laws will fall into our hands in the end. Yes, this rule is almost tailor-made for us. Mr. Singh must be very happy to find this many free sparring partners here. It's hard to imagine that someone with a Fate State cultivation would be strong enough to beat advanced Star State opponents. He must be aiming for the championship of the Universe Geniuses contest, isn't he? Who could argue with this? But the champions of each Universe Geniuses contest are just as strong as him. Such people will definitely reach the Ascendant State as long as they don't die. The gap between some human beings is truly huge. Some people are simply born to illuminate the entire universe. They talked while always focusing on a man in the small world, not daring to lose sight of him for a moment. They would have to immediately relocate him if he was in danger, as they were tasked to keep him safe. If anything happened to him, the punishment would be too much for them to bear, even if they were Star Lords. However, they didn't think that anything would happen to him, considering the guy's abilities. After all, he wouldn't have gone to that divine residence in the first place if a bunch of Star State warriors could threaten his life. As time went by, more and more people were rescued from the battlefield along with their pets, losing their right to keep fighting. Half an hour later, only 8 men were left in the small world. Only 2 of the Alliance of Stars champions were left, namely Suiping and Father Time. Hades was heavily wounded when he filled in the offensive position and was rescued. Father Time was devoted to defense skills and had mastered defensive laws. he was so sturdy that he endured the attacks of 5 men. However, he was also approaching his limits too. He had endured for such a long time mainly because Suaping had been healing him and covering his back. Finish off the alliance of stars first. His turtle shell is so sturdy. That's true. Someone shouted and chose the alliance of stars as the target. After all, Father Time had only shown defense abilities in the battles so far, such opponents were no threat to them. Even if they couldn't break his defenses, they wouldn't get wounded either. It would be safe. Come on and give it a try. Father Time breathed heavily, with sharpness glowing in his eyes. Suaping stood next to him while being silent. However, divine power surged inside his body, he would replace Father Time if the man failed. He didn't launch any reckless attacks because there were too many opponents. He might be singled out and collectively attacked by others if he showed his real strength. However confident he was, he didn't have the courage to fight against dozens of advanced star state experts. He was only a void state warrior after all. Whoosh! The 2 men who had just spoken charged along with their pets at Suaping and Father Time. Father Time's eyes were cold and his heart was bitter, but he didn't retreat. He had endured for such a long time because he wanted to obtain the Tree of Laws and get a chance to become a Star Lord. Roar! Dragon patterns appeared on his body and spread out to create a gigantic turtle that enshrouded both himself and Suaping. A tensile law had been condensed on it, although it was nothing special, just the law of solidity of the rock class. The dark dragon hound had also grasped that law, but its understanding was nowhere nearly as deep as Father Time's. That law of solidity was so powerful that even if it was imposed on thin paper, the paper would be hard enough to resist fate state attacks. Hwalala! It was exactly at that moment when chains clattered, and the 2 incoming star state men trembled. A dark chain darted over as quickly as lightning and pierced through one of the men's shoulders. Once the man's shoulder was pierced, the chain was spun, swinging the man into the small world's ground, producing a huge pit. Hey! His partner was shocked. He turned around, only to find that the chain was being controlled by a young man wearing a purple robe. Silver light was condensed in his eyes as he spread out his senses. Then, he narrowed his eyes in shock. According to his perception, the young man was only a fate state expert. More and more people noticed the purple-robed young man after he took action. The rogue cultivators outside of the battlefield observed him with shock and suspicion. Is the man using a disguise technique, or is that his real level? Fate state. The leader girl and the leader of the Ohuang Alliance both narrowed their eyes. Very soon, someone recognized the purple-robed young man and said in shock, "It's him? I heard that someone stepped into the 8th floor of the Phantom Lightning Tower and caused a burst of power in the Sea of Lightning. That's exactly him. I've seen this guy before. He seems to be the disciple of a certain Ascendant State expert. Why is he here? Is one of the 3 Ascendants inside the Divine Residence his master? He entered the Phantom Lightning Tower? So he's really at the Fate State? How is it possible? The previous strike contained the power of laws and was quite sophisticated. Even so, you're telling me that he's only at the Fate State?" The Star Lords were more or less shocked. They looked at each other in bewilderment. It was rather unbelievable to have the disciple of an Ascendant State expert exploring a mysterious realm together with them. It was also of note that the guy was only a Fate State warrior. He was still so weak. Why not keep a low profile? Was he not scared of getting killed? However, even more unbelievable, the guy had heavily wounded someone in the advanced phase of the Star State. Humph, even if he's a disciple of one of those ascendants, it's still nothing remarkable, the leader girl snorted and said, after hearing the whispers. There was disdain on her face, but her eyes were full of solemnity. He was only at the Fate State, but he was already able to fight advanced Star State experts. He would definitely grow much stronger if he acquired the Tree of Laws. She remembered that the Universe Geniuses contest would soon be held. The guy surely joined the exploration partly because of that. She had also participated in the Universe Geniuses contest years back, but her result wasn't very satisfactory. Inside the small world, everybody looked at the purple-robed young man in shock except for Suaping. This can't be real. Fate State warriors can't be that strong. Even the geniuses from the 5 best academies can only manage to fight early Star State experts. I can only sense that he's a Fate State warrior by using my secret technique. Even if he disguised himself, he's still horrifying enough. He's too dangerous. Let's finish him off first. Guys, let's take him down then. It's too dangerous to keep him alive, someone suggested loudly. The others didn't say anything, but they turned and gazed at the purple-robed young man, considering him a primary target. He seems to truly be a Fate State expert. While standing behind Father Time, Suaping also looked at the purple-robed young man who suddenly intervened, although confused. He couldn't see through the guy's level, but his intuition told him that the guy wasn't at the Star State. Hee. Hearing the loud roar, and seeing that he was already a public target, the purple-robed young man remained impassive. Chains surged from underneath his sleeves and pants, surrounding him like snakes. Now that I've decided to take action, I'm not afraid of being collectively attacked by the lot of you. Come on, help me with some warm-up exercises. How arrogant! The partner of the person who was wounded by him earlier roared and attacked him. An aura spear flew out with the powerful law of destruction condensed in it, enabling it to penetrate anything. His power was doubled as divine power burst out from his body. Plus the power of his constitution, his attack was so terrifying that it could have destroyed a city or shaken a continent in the outside world. A mere elemental constitution, the purple-robed young man smiled casually, and his body suddenly glowed, emanating an abundant divine power. He looked like a dazzling god. Everybody inside and outside of the small world was shocked. A divine constitution. Oh my god, it's the best divine constitution. Only one person in a million has that. No wonder he's so strong. He's unparalleled with this divine constitution. As the purple-robed young man revealed his constitution, he released the dazzling brilliance of a star and swung his chains, which were imbued with the strange power of laws. After a boom, the chains pierced through the aura spear and then pressed on. Help me! The advanced Star State expert was shocked and roared loudly. Nobody attacked him while he was in trouble. They had no time to figure out if the purple-robed young man was truly a Fate State warrior. The divine constitution alone was enough to make everybody fall in awe. Very few battle pet warriors in the Federation had a constitution. The divine constitution was the best constitution, the absolute dominator, just like the dragons among pets. The divine constitution was so rare that it would be lucky for 1 or 2 people to be born with one in a whole galaxy. Roar! Some dragons roared and dashed out, and some battle pet warriors also moved out. They used all kinds of secret techniques and launched attacks that contained different laws and elements, determined to kill the purple-robed young man. The scarred land collapsed and fell apart on the ground below the chaotic battle. The small world was shaking, as if 100 nuclear bombs would have been detonated in the same area. Even the small world seemed to have loosened. The purple-robed young man, however, sneered. A divine deer that had eyes all over its body appeared behind him. The divine deer turned into light and melted into his body, making the divine brilliance on his body even more dazzling. Then, his chains turned into pure gold. The chains were collectively a special treasure made of the power of laws and many special materials. They could easily rip apart the laws that were less hard. After a boom, his chains were condensed into a ball that surrounded his body when he was drowned by all the attacks. There was a deafening noise, dozens of chains darted from the chaotic energy towards the men and their pets who had just attacked. He's still alive. Father Time and Suaping were observing. Father Time slightly widened his eyes. Even though he wasn't confident of resisting the crazy barrage just then, all the survivors at the moment were all distinguished cultivators in the advanced phase of the Star State who had special methods. They could easily kill anyone at their level with a joint attack, And yet, this guy, who was only a Fate State warrior, managed to resist the attack? Not only did the scene shock the champions in the small world, but the rogue cultivators and star states outside also changed their expressions and became grave. The leaders of the Thousand Feathers Alliance and the Huang Alliance were no longer in the mood for bickering. They were so serious that they acted as if they were different people. Both of them were equally scared of such an intimidating junior. More importantly, the man had a powerful background, and they couldn't just eliminate him. If his master was one of the three ascendants deep inside the divine residence, one of them would always keep an eye on the situation. 100 ghosts, bind. After his roar, the chains that darted out of the chaotic energy flashed and tied up 5 pets as well as the 3 battle pet warriors. The chains were absolutely unpredictable. Apart from the horrifying power of laws they were also part of a sophisticated technique. The way the chains are used seems to be a legendary technique. I heard there's a chain technique that can tie up a galaxy when fully grasped. Any of the chains can pierce through a planet, and summon billions of ghosts to help you. The chains emitted red light while under the watch of the Star Lords. Then, the pets and battle pet warriors that were caught by the chains screamed miserably, red light surged from their skin. Then, the red light was condensed to a human shape and was then hauled back by the chains. The bodies of the victims helplessly fell down. The chains were able to confine souls. Fight for me. The purple-robed young man smiled casually and unleashed an even more daunting aura. He was able to fight those in the advanced phase of the star state when he was only a Fate State expert, partly because of the techniques and laws he knew, and partly because his divine constitution provided infinite energy for him. That was why he could launch so many powerful attacks. After the purple-haired young man gave an order, the red souls that were tied up by the chains roared and charged at Suaping, Father Time, and the other survivors. Father Time slightly changed his expression and defended himself with the law of solidity. The red souls, however, screamed devastatingly, which would cause mental damage. Father Time seemed to be in considerable pain. Suaping frowned. While facing the sharp sonic blades that were piercing into his brain, he roared in his heart with killing intent flashing before his eyes. He was imitating the roar of a certain undead creature in the chaotic realm of the undead. His soul shivered when he heard the roar at a distance back then, it left a deep impression on him. After multiple tests, Suaping discovered that the roar could intimidate ghosts. Suaping summoned the little skeleton and asked it to take care of them. The little skeleton had slain and devoured countless ghosts in the cultivation sites, it had developed a special aura that ghosts found intimidating. After the little skeleton stepped out, the red souls quickly flinched and marched to the others. Hey! The purple-robed young man sensed the fear of the red souls and raised his eyebrows, before he looked at Suaping. He was slightly surprised when he detected that Suaping was only at the void state, but he recovered quickly. He was never good at detection, and it wasn't unusual for those in the star state to conceal their real strength. After all, he was one major level underneath them. It would have been horrifying if he dwarfed those in the advanced phase of the star state in every aspect. Destroy! The purple-robed young man unleashed his chains towards Suaping and Father Time with a thought. Father Time changed his expression and raised an indestructible wall in front of him. Not even the explosion of a planet would have shaken it. However, the wall trembled when the chains darted close. Cracks spread out on the wall. The horrifying tearing force on the chains quickly destroyed the laws that the wall contained. Adding the law of destruction that the chains contained, the wall gradually decayed, producing a grey mist. The wall was completely unable to resist it any longer, falling apart into pieces. Father Time roared and green light surfaced on his body. It was his healing constitution, related to the elemental class. Pairing his constitution and the law of solidity under his possession, his defense was among the best, few people in his level were able to defeat him. Some of the pets behind his back were good at applying enhancement skills. They would cast buffs on him, making him emit green light and turning him into a strong beastly man. His dry body was replenished when the healing constitution was activated, and a tremendous amount of energy was spread out of his cells. He waved his hands and blocked the piercing chains by raising more walls. Great defenses. Tisk, tisk. I don't think many Star State warriors can defeat him quickly, right? He will probably become a super turtle shell when he becomes a Star Lord. He's so sturdy. Unfortunately, he has to count on his team. He can't acquire treasures and adventures with sturdiness alone. Even if the beasts guarding the treasures can't beat him, he can't beat them either. He needs teammates. All the onlookers outside the battlefield were amazed by Father Time. He deserved to be one of the men who had endured such a long time. His constitution matched his laws perfectly. If he ever met anyone whose level was higher than his own, he could probably just stand there and allow the attacks to land. God of Lightning's Law, Vitality. Heal. Sua Ping was amazed by Father Time's sturdiness too. He wouldn't be forced to attack, and would have the chance to preserve his strength. He made use of the God of Lightning's Law again, which was both destructive and healing. Sua Ping asked the little skeleton to absorb the undead aura in the void and transform it into vitality that was later directed into Father Time's body, further boosting his constitution. This feels good. Father Time laughed with joy, sensing Sua Ping's reinforcement. Far away, the purple-robed young man grew cold. Next to him, a roar suddenly burst out, and an enemy suddenly emerged from his shadow, cutting his neck. A weird claw appeared on the purple-robed young man's back and caught the weapon. While holding the weapon, the monster's upper half-body rose from the purple-robed young man's back. It was a monster with the torso of a woman and a snake's lower half of its body. Its face was utterly hideous, and it slightly opened its fang-filled mouth. Its eyes were dark gold and full of thirst for blood. A parasite beast. That's an Aya demonic snake. An Aya demonic snake with a Star Lord bloodline? Oh my god, it's one of the best parasite beasts. It's said that the Aya demonic snakes serve the Azura kings in hell, feeding on ghosts and blood and residing in undead creatures and skeletons. They're as expensive as some of the small galaxies. Everybody outside the battlefield was shocked. Parasite beasts were pets with the unique ability of residing inside the battle pet warriors. They could enable a dual fusion for the battle pet warriors. Those pets were quite rare. Although unremarkable if their levels were too low, they would fetch the highest prices of the pets in their level if they were in the star state. Not even the popular dragon pets could compare with them. Well, the leader of the Huang Alliance and the other Star Lords had twitching cheeks after seeing that. Even they felt jealous of a parasite beast with such a bloodline. The leader girl frowned even more solemnly. No wonder he was able to unleash such a horrifying energy, having that pet reside in his body. All the laws and techniques he performed depended on energy. The energy from his divine constitution and the fusion wasn't enough to power them, but everything was explainable since the Aya demonic snake had shown up. Bang! In the small world, the Aya demonic snake suddenly craned its head and broke the weapon that attacked him. Then, its other claw snatched and pierced the undead pet that had just ambushed him. Blood splashed out, and the undead pet turned into a mist while trying to flee, but it seemed to be stuck to something and could only struggle hard. Humph! The purple-robed young man's face was cold. Sensing his will, the Aya demonic snake on his back instantly opened its mouth and bit the undead pet with dazzling light emanating from its eyes, ready to swallow the pet whole. Seeing that, an old man cursed gloomily and angrily, "Damn it, release my pet!" The purple-robed young man raised his brows and sneered. "You should be prepared to die if you choose to fight me. Or, you can get lost right now. You." The old man looked awful and could only grit his teeth. He wanted to surrender, but would not dare to violate his leader's order. Outside the small world, a Star Lord heaved a sigh after seeing that. Never mind. Just give up. He knew it would be virtually impossible to get the Tree of Laws while the purple-robed young man was there. Even if the old man continued to fight, he could hardly stand to the end without allies and his pets. Hearing that, the old man was relieved. He quickly said, "Let go of my pet. I give up." Hee hee. The purple-robed young man chuckled but simply ignored him. The old man changed his expression and demanded furiously, "What are you doing?" He hurriedly summoned his battle pet, but the contract bond was blocked by a weird law, not allowing him to retrieve his struggling pet from the snake's month. "My young friend, you're being outrageous." The Star Lord outside of the small world was gloomy. "You're only a Fate State Junior. Don't push it too far. I would have smashed you to death had it not been for the Ascendant State expert behind you." After a hum, the snake's mouth became empty, and the pet in it was taken out. However, the pet had quite the scary look at that moment. It was already half rotten and dying. It was clearly affected by a lethal poison and would die if it wasn't treated soon. The Star Lord had a contorted face. He released an ivory-colored energy that covered the pet. The wounds it had were gradually healed, while the poison was temporarily suppressed. Whoosh! The old man left the small world and looked at his pet. There was hate in his eyes, but he quickly hid it. That young man was a genius. It was foolish to show the desire for revenge when he was incapable of putting it into practice. "Thank you very much, leader," the old man thanked his leader sincerely. "The venom has been suppressed for now. You can treat it somewhere else later." The Star Lord waved his hand. Humph! Inside the small world, the purple-robed young man narrowed his eyes angrily when the Star Lord intervened, but he soon masked his feelings. It had already been his best to defeat advanced Star State experts. It was impossible for him to fight the Star Lords. After all, there was a gap of 2 major levels between the Fate State and the Star Lord State. He had been cultivating passively when he was still in his mother's womb. She took a lot of nurturing herbs when her mother was pregnant, and some experts polished the fetus veins and body with energy back then. After he was born, he was ahead of his peers all the time, and he had infinite training resources. He was the best in every aspect. That was the reason why he could beat those in the advanced phase of the Star State when he was only a Fate State warrior. He was one of the strongest in his generation in the entire Federation. Only the Universe Geniuses contest would give him a chance to reveal his extraordinary power to the world. "You'll be mere ants after I break through to the Star State." The purple-robed young man coldly withdrew his gaze from the outside world. His pride made him crave strength even more. He wanted to do even more extraordinary things. "Let me show you a real technique." The purple-robed young man fixed his eyes on the people in front of him. A dense red mist appeared around him. It was an ancient technique he had practiced, one designed to deal with Star Lords. All his cells rejoiced when the bloody mist was spread, and his strength multiplied. This is the Bloody Demon Immortality Technique. It's said that the technique dates back to the age of deities and demons. It is weird and horrifying. It is said that immortality can be achieved if you fully grasp the technique. That's something that only an Ascendant State expert can do. This is unbelievable. What's his background? The people outside the small world were astonished. Even Star Lords were shocked. That Fate State guy had even more treasures than they did. They didn't have such a high-ranking technique. Techniques were the core when it came to battle pet warriors. They could decide the speed of astral power absorption, the efficiency of astral power transformation, Ellie's speed, etc. Some of them had special applications, such as absorbing astral power from plants or blood. There were also techniques that could significantly enhance a person with an array of pets. That was why the top techniques were extremely rare. They were even more expensive than the top pets themselves. Demonic blood that destroys the world, obey me. The purple-robed young man rose to the sky in the small world and looked down at both the participants and the shattered land. He raised his hand, condensing a ball of surging blood in his palm. The demonic blood seemed to be alive, quickly spreading its chains. The chains instantly clinked in delight and became red. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The next moment, the chains were darting at everybody like snakes and spears. 3 of them were aimed at Father Time, but they were blocked by his protective wall. However, the wall soon exploded moments after. A second wall continued resisting the chains. Suiping was quite serious too. He had never seen anyone that strong in the fate state. If the guy were a pet, he would have definitely had high-level aptitudes, considering his actual performance. The purple-robed young man selected and attacked a lot of targets. Many pets were pierced by the chains, ending up heavily wounded. The battle pet warriors weren't any better. Some dodged, some counterattacked, and some simply hid themselves with special techniques. However, they were soon forced to get out of their shelters, as the chains seemed smart enough to detect the places where they were hiding. You're just a fate state warrior. Don't get too cocky. Die! Someone roared and released a shocking aura, which caused a streak of sparks on the chains before it moved towards the purple-robed young man. The demonic snake on the purple-robed young man's back rose and blocked the aura, but it was quickly pressed back. The other battle pet warriors also shouted and attacked. They were in the advanced phase of the star state anyway, and they performed their ultimate techniques. The purple-robed young man managed to block some of the attacks with his chains, and the demonic snake helped block some, too. However, the snake was better at offense than defense. The purple-robed young man seemed to be losing after consecutive attacks and was heavily wounded. Roar! The purple-robed young man bellowed furiously. His divine constitution became even more brilliant. He charged at the battle pet warriors with a bloody mist surrounding his body, choosing to fight melee battles with the help of the chains. Surprisingly enough, the latter was quite good at melee skills. His moves were brutal and unpredictable. It didn't take long for a pair of battle pet warriors to be knocked down from the sky. A battle pet warrior, seeing that Father Time and Suiping weren't hurt, could not help but shout in shock and fury, "Why aren't you attacking?" Father Time cried, "We're only capable of defending. How could we attack? Block his attack for me then. I don't know you." "What the heck?" The battle pet warrior was so furious he rolled his eyes. Profiting from that distraction, the purple-robed young man punched him in the face and smashed him to the ground. "I'll take care of you later." The young man glanced at Father Time and Suiping coldly. After watching the fierce battles, Father Time realized that the vicious young man had obvious advantages, and the other champion's failure was only a matter of time. He turned around and asked Suiping, "Should we just surrender later?" "Why should we?" Suiping was stunned. Father Time was almost speechless. "Why? Do we have a way to defeat him? There would have been a chance for us if 3 punches were still here. But only the 2 of us are left. I can only defend, and you can only heal and enhance. We'll only be beaten for a longer time even if we stay. What's the point? I can also attack." Suiping said, "I've only been preserving my strength." So many people were watching. Unless they were certain of their victory, why would they expose all their trump cards? They were just acting as champions anyway, they weren't fighting for themselves. Still, they weren't fools, either. If only 2 or 3 people were left in the end, they would probably try their best, because they would only be 1 step away from winning. Roar! The battlefield presented shocking changes when Suiping was about to attack. The bloody mist around the purple-robed young man was absorbed into his body, and an even more dazzling light emerged. His aura became stronger than that of any other person's on the battlefield. He roared and swung his chains like whips and sharp blades that could cut the land apart. Some of the pets were instantly shattered after being hit by them, falling down right after. "Is the advanced phase of the star state so worthless?" the purple-robed young man bellowed. His eyes were bloodshot and brutal, but he remained absolutely calm. He charged at an old man and covered himself with the chains while he compressed some of them to form a spear. The old man was shocked by this. He raised multiple shields and activated 2 defensive treasures. One of them was a wheel, and the other was a twig. The wheel was pierced through and exploded. Its surrounding light was gone, wasted. The twig, however, boasted an amazing power that blocked the chains, but not for long. It crumbled into pieces and turned into ash in the end. You. The old man was so regretful about the destruction of his secret treasures that his eyes became bloodshot. However, he gritted his teeth and quickly retreated, not daring to confront the young man. Where do you think you're going? The vicious young man ignored the others and blocked the old man's escape, stabbing with the spear of chains which was ablaze and bloody. Shocked, the old man cried quickly, "I give up." He had other trump cards, but he was unwilling to use them. Some were very costly. He would have to sacrifice his longevity, or even exhaust his constitution, which would affect his cultivation in the future. Whoosh! Hardly had the old man said that when he disappeared from the small world, he was relocated by the Star Lord. The purple-robed young man quickly paused when the spear missed its target and looked at the remaining participants. He then grabbed a section of the chains and spun them. The chains, like mountains, forced the enemies around him to retreat. One of them was hit by the chains and instantly vomited blood. He was flung tens of thousands of meters away until he was picked by his pet. After forcing them to retreat, the purple-robed young man hovered in the sky proudly and shouted, showing no respect for anyone, "Who's next?" The rogue cultivators outside of the small world, including those in the star state, were silent. They were too shocked. Was it really something that a Fate State warrior could achieve? He had crushed someone in the advanced phase of the star state. The three phases of the star state had as huge differences among each other as that between the star state and the Fate State. The young man had gone across 3 levels in a row. He's an example for all of us. Far in the distance, the forces that had entered the divine residence on spaceships saw the battle in the small world too and were shocked. The Fate State passengers were even more excited. Those in the star state had been on the top of their worlds like mountains. Nobody could have defied this order. However, the high and mighty star state experts had been trounced by a Fate State fellow. Nobody was able to defeat him. How awesome was that? Ha! The purple-robed young man sneered as he looked at the remaining star state opponents who were catching their breath at the moment. Star state warriors should be able to travel the universe and survive while in the void of space. Unfortunately, you're too weak. You're not true star state experts, at all. You will know what it really means to dominate the stars when I enter the star state. The star state champions looked awful once they heard his claims. The rogue cultivators outside the small world were angry after such a provocation. You may be strong, but what you said is too demeaning. Damn it, this guy is too cocky. Father Time was also furious, but was unable to say anything. It was truly degrading to have been suppressed by someone who had such a low cultivation. The most infuriating thing was that there was nothing they could say in their defense. They were exasperated. Father Time suddenly noticed that there was nothing but peace and even a look of appreciation on Sui Ping's face. He asked weirdly, "Why aren't you angry?" Sui Ping was stunned by the question. He asked back, "Why should I be angry? Aren't you angry because of what he just said? That boy is too cocky. He's offending all of the Star State warriors." "Oh," Sui Ping replied casually. "He despises all the Star State warriors. Is it any of my business? Besides, I agree with what the guy said. Shouldn't those in the Star State travel the universe and dominate the stars?" Father Time was lost for words about Sui Ping's shamelessness. He wasn't angry at all after being slapped in the face. Even if that young guy was strong enough to back such remarks, it was still infuriating to be insulted. "Junior." A middle-aged man stepped out furiously. "You're too arrogant. I'll admit that you're strong if you can resist this attack." "Bring it on," the purple-robed young man chuckled and said in disdain. Infuriated by such a response, the middle-aged man unleashed a series of violent lightning bolts. He clearly had an elemental lightning constitution, and the energy suggested that it was an advanced lightning body. He raised his hands and concentrated all the lightning bolts on his hands. Then, a dark red saber appeared in his palm, before it was covered by lightning, turning into a lightning saber. Someone recognized the middle-aged man's technique and exclaimed in shock, "The ultimate technique of the Lightning God Mountain, Lightning Wave Saber." Lightning God Mountain was a major force in the Federation. It was called a mountain, but it was actually bigger than a star. Many ascendants lived there. It was such a powerful organization that even the 5 best academies had to kneel before them. The Lightning Wave Saber was a combination of the Lightning class and the Light class, both of which were famous for their speed. That technique was best known for how quick and brutal it was. The purple-robed young man raised his eyebrows and became solemn, but eventually sneered and said, "Interesting. But you haven't fully grasped this technique yet." In the next moment, he waved his chains and gathered them in front of himself like a web. However, exactly at that moment, the purple-robed young man's pupils shrunk. After a boom, an explosion burst out. The dazzling and scorching saber was still being gathered in front of the middle-aged man, but a golden rune flew in front of the purple-robed young man and was torn apart. It almost seemed that the purple-robed young man had been ambushed. However, none of the Star State experts had taken any action. It was quite a weird scene. Moments after, someone noticed a secret treasure that looked like a water ball behind the broken rune. The water wall was shaking, revealing the dazzling saber aura inside. The lightning inside the saber aura made the water sphere boil. It was exactly the lightning wave saber. On the other hand, the scorching aura in the middle-aged man's hand was already gone. As it turned out, he had launched the real saber aura faster than anybody could see. That was the Lightning God Mountain's ultimate technique. There was a loud boom, and the water ball exploded under the surging lightning bolts. However, the beads of water fell at a high speed and crashed into the shattered land down below, making resounding noises. Every drop of water was like a meteor. However, the water sphere blockage gave the purple-robed young man enough time to react. He swung his chains and minced the saber aura that didn't have much momentum left. "You ruined 2 of my secret treasures. You deserve to die." The purple-robed young man narrowed his eyes and stared at the middle-aged man. The mature warrior's expression changed slightly, feeling frustrated. He had already used his ultimate skill, but still failed to defeat the young man. The young man was not only strong but also a member from a super-rich family. The 2 broken treasures from moments before were the best ones used for defense in Star State battles. There was no telling how many more such treasures the guy had. It wasn't hard to imagine that the big hots behind him had surely prepared more than those 2 treasures to keep him safe. The rest of the people watching realized this too, and their gestures changed. All of them heaved sighs. It was truly a slap on their faces. A Fate State guy had stomped the faces of all the Star State warriors, yet nobody could fight back. Never mind. It's pointless to fight someone like him. The golden rune seemed to contain a higher power. I'm almost sure it was created by an Ascendant State expert. He'll be absolutely unbeatable if he has other defense treasures like that. It's unfair that such a man would compete over the Tree of Laws with us. Outside of the small world, all the Star Lords shook their heads and gave up on the idea of competing. First of all, the purple-robed young man had horrifying combat ability. He was almost invincible while having all those defensive treasures. The Star Lords could definitely suppress him, but there was no way that they could offend a guy with such a background just to get a Tree of Laws. If his master were one of the 3 Ascendant State experts inside the Divine Residence, they would probably be killed before they did anything. Is this what a genius should be like? He's terrifying. He's also too arrogant. I'm so angry. All the Alliance of Stars members moaned in regret. Suaping and Father Time had a certain advantage since they had endured for such a long time, but they would have to give away the Tree of Laws since that genius had shown up. What a shame. Shenung's 3 punches and Hades, who had already been eliminated, also heaved sighs. Whoosh! Whoosh! More and more champions were relocated by the Star Lords backing them, straight away quitting the competition. The leader girl puffed her cheeks angrily, but she also knew it would be pointless to keep fighting. I would have crushed you if I had met you years ago. But I can't beat you now. It's boring to beat someone whose level is so low. The leader girl was quite angry. Once he saw the girl's look, the deputy smiled and said, "Miss, don't feel bad. Geniuses like him are rare, and too many of them have perished as they try to grow. Very few can reach the ascendant state in the end. You only need to accumulate your strength and break through sooner. People like him can only aspire to be your students." "Well, that's true, but I don't want arrogant students like him," declared the leader girl proudly. The deputy couldn't help but smile. "If we're talking about arrogance, you are the real spoiled kid here, don't you think? Have you finally realized the truth? Hee hee. They're all gone. Do you want to be beaten some more?" The purple-robed young man looked at the relocated champions and knew that their leading Star Lords had yielded. He had a strong sense of achievement after forcing the Star Lords to retreat. It was nothing unusual for him to kill someone at his level, it couldn't bring him any gratification. "I'll be able to step on the heads of Star Lords when I reach the Star State." The purple-robed young man thought and looked at the last two men impatiently. He couldn't wait to claim the Tree of Laws and absorb its fruits, which would further strengthen him and make it even easier for him to suppress those in the advanced phase of the Star State. "He's too arrogant." Father Time was fuming but didn't dare to say anything back. Even those 4 words were only said telepathically to Suaping. After all, considering the abilities the man had shown, he was destined to radiate in the entire Federation. It wasn't wise to mock and offend such a genius. "Indeed, he is," Suaping nodded and said, "It's our turn. The Tree of Laws will be ours if we defeat him." Father Time was going to say let's retreat. He almost vomited blood when he heard Suaping's reply. He asked in shock, "What nonsense are you talking about? You think we can beat him? Didn't you see the guy's defensive treasures? If there's no one else distracting his firepower, even I might not be able to endure his attacks, much less defeat him." "If you're not going, I am," said Suaping. The Tree of Laws was right in front of his eyes, there was no way that he would miss out on getting such an ultimate treasure. The fruits of laws would solidify his foundation and even enable him to break into the Fate State. Suaping had stepped out as he spoke. Father Time was only capable of defending, and could not offer more help. Seeing Suaping's action, Father Time was instantly flabbergasted. "Damn, you're really going?" The leader girl was about to take Suaping and Father Time out, when she saw Suaping's movement and became puzzled. "Does he still want to fight?" "Hey!" The deputy frowned too. He suddenly realized that he couldn't see through the new member. The Void State? Everybody noticed Suaping at that moment. All the Star Lords of the Alliances scanned him and were left in a daze. Many Star Lords were shocked and suspicious. Their perception technique was definitely above the Star State, yet they couldn't detect Suaping's actual level, which was rather weird. Some of them even examined Suaping with the power of the small world, but they still couldn't detect any Star State aura in his body. He seemed to be in the Void State from every perspective. However, only 3 men were left in the small world, and one of them was in the Void State. Apart from the Star Lords, the unaffiliated cultivators in the Star State were also shocked and suspicious. Many people in the Alliance of Stars had noticed Suaping's level and simply thought that he was good at disguise. They were rather surprised to hear the whispers. "Is nobody here able to see through Suaping's disguise? His disguise abilities are truly astounding. Look, all those Star Lords are saying that Brother Heaven Destroyer is in the Void State. What is going on? Seriously? Not even the Star Lords can detect Brother Heaven Destroyer's real level. Well, who exactly is this new member?" Many people in the Alliance of Stars looked at O'Neill. O'Neill was at a loss just like them. He knew that Suaping was very strong, but he didn't know that Star Lords also had a hard time seeing through his cover. Is Suaping at the peak of the Star State? But if it were so, he wouldn't have let Garland or neither of his fellows get away earlier. O'Neill felt confused. He couldn't figure out the reason, but there was a shocking conjecture he didn't dare to confirm. If true, then Suaping would definitely be much more horrifying than the purple-robed young man who had crushed all those Star State experts. After all, Suaping's main focus was pet training. A Grandmaster trainer at that. Hey! Still within the small world, the purple-robed young man noticed the aura Suaping unleashed too. He slightly raised his eyebrows but didn't pay much attention. The void state? I can easily take care of that guy if that's his real cultivation. If it was fake, it wouldn't be a big deal. He was never good at scanning. Advanced Star State warriors could have easily disguised themselves in front of him. After all, he would be a real monster if he was better than them in every aspect. If you want to fight, don't hide your cultivation and show me your real strength. The purple-robed young man chuckled. All the contestants had been knocked out except for the two sturdy guys. He didn't consider them a big deal at all, in fact he was delighted, since he was ready to take the Tree of Laws. You see through me? Suaping was surprised. Then, he didn't hide his strength anymore. That purple-robed young man was quite tricky to deal with. Even he wasn't confident of beating him, depending on how many trump cards the other guy had. With a thought, he summoned the little skeleton, calling him for a dual fusion. Swoosh! The little skeleton quickly disappeared into Suaping's body. White bones soon grew out of his pores and spread on his arms, neck, chest, and face. All his vitals were covered in bones. Then, after merging with the white-scaled vast sky thunderous dragon, he looked like a skeleton dragon. His pointy tail was swept in midair and pushed the air out. If they were in the outside world, that tail swing was enough to tear open the secondary space. Suaping grew significantly stronger after the fusions, like a rising sun. He emitted an expanding aura. Swoosh! As he breathed, Suaping felt like the air he exhaled could penetrate the void. His eyes became solemn and sharp. Hey! Dual fusion? That seems to be a parasite beast. That skeleton seems to belong to the Skeleton King's family. Those aren't parasite beasts. They're battle pets strong in offense that are also capable of emulating the parasite beast's ability. Skeleton Kings? But that skeleton doesn't seem to be the same as the Skeleton Kings I know. It's not as large. Is it an inferior mutant? He seems to be in the Star State. Nobody in the Void State carries such an aura. His disguise technique is truly horrifying. That's true. Even I fail to find out exactly how strong he is exactly. He must be using top Star Lord secret techniques, or even of the Ascendant State. He has really been keeping a low profile. He must hail from a powerful background. Outside of the battlefield, the Star Lords kept on whispering in astonishment. Given that they sensed Suaping's aura, which was close to the advanced phase of the Star State, all had thought at first that they had made an error when gauging his level, as it wasn't something that anyone in the Void State could achieve. Maybe Suaping wasn't really an advanced Star State warrior, but he was undoubtedly in the Star State. A Skeleton King, the purple-robed young man narrowed his eyes at Suaping and then said casually, "You can only reach the advanced Star State with the dual fusion, so you must be originally in the beginning phase of the Star State. You may be a genius, but you're not good enough." He suddenly launched an attack as he talked. An overwhelming number of chains were slapped on Suaping's head. The chains were glowing. They contained the purple-robed young man's power of laws and constitution, which were able to cut the land apart. Suaping didn't say anything. He certainly knew that the dual fusion wasn't good enough, which was why he performed it at the beginning. Not using your strength isn't good enough, either. Suaping suddenly threw a punch of his own. Billions of vortexes revolved inside his cells, unleashing a horrifying power that could rip planets apart. His astral power instantly rose to the peak. The refined divine power in his acupoints were gathered and compressed on his fist, to then be launched with an attack. Boom! The fist glowed like the sun, releasing an overwhelming power when it collided with the chains. The entire small world instantly began to shake, the shattered land also trembled. The chains were flung back by the punch, and the divine light on the chains started to dim. The power of laws were also shaken and thrown back to the purple-robed young man like dozens of dead snakes. Suaping had actually won on that first collision. All the observers outside the small world were shocked and filled with disbelief. The punch was so brilliant and majestic, seemingly strong enough to shake the planet. This fist technique, it's so fierce and unstoppable as if able to destroy everything in its way. In the Heavenly Fist Alliance's corner, Sheneng's 3 punches looked at Suaping in shock. He had been familiar with all sorts of fist techniques, but the attack that Suaping had just demonstrated was still an eye-opener for him. It was quite similar to the fist technique he practiced. They were both brutal and domineering. However, Suaping's fist technique was even more domineering. If he managed to learn something from Suaping's technique, his fist would become even more powerful than before. Hey! The purple-robed young man retrieved the chains and became cold. Anger and killing intent surfaced in his eyes. He had planned to finish off the guy quickly, but the latter had shown remarkable strength. However, does he really think he can win the competition with that? Bloody Demon Immortality Technique. After a boom, the purple-robed young man performed his technique again. Deep red mist of blood rose from his body and was spread out over his chains. The divine light covering the chains mixed with the blood became red and golden and looked rather evil. Suaping retreated his fist and gazed at his opponent coldly. His fist was really powerful because he had made use of his own technique. Some techniques could enhance a person's astral power, some could invoke the potential in their own blood, and some could transform metals into energy. The Chaos Star chart that Suaping practiced, on the other hand, helped him gather a horrifying and explosive power. Suaping was better able to notice how remarkable the technique was as he rose to higher levels. It was one of the reasons why he was confident of fighting that man. Thousand Lock Star Piercing Spear. Rage appeared in the purple-robed young man's eyes. He performed a technique that he hadn't used yet. Boosted by his divine constitution and his techniques, plus the law of destruction he had thoroughly grasped, he swung the chains like hundreds of snakes and gathered them to form a golden spear. It was one of his strongest attack techniques. It abandoned all defenses and was fully focused on offense. Together with the destructiveness of the chains themselves, it could pierce through even a sturdy advanced star-state pet. What an intimidating aura! The Bloody Demon Immortality Technique seems to be an ancient evil technique. I didn't expect that the guy would have such a method. Didn't he use it before because he had to defend against our attacks? This guy is even more terrifying in a duel. The people outside of the battlefield changed their expressions when they saw the chain spear that gathered bloody aura and divine light. All the champions who had been relocated earlier felt fortunate for not staying in the same world with such a monster. It was almost like staying inside a cage holding a ferocious beast. Brother Heaven Destroyer. Father Time's expression also changed. He sensed a dazzling and unstoppable power that he had never encountered in his life. He wasn't at all confident of resisting the following attack. It was mind-boggling to consider that the attack had been launched by someone in the Fate state. Suaping became solemn when he saw the horrifying spear. Vortices trembled inside his body, and infinite astral power flowed in his veins like rivers, making him much stronger than before. You have a constitution, and so do I. Suaping's eyes became completely black, the sclera was also replaced by darkness. He had rarely used his constitution in the real world, but he decided to do so this time. It was the divine constitution invoked after he passed the tests in the Golden Crow's world, known as the Sorcerer's Divine Constitution. Sorcerers had been the dominators of the world during primordial times. The rays of light around him were gone after Suaping activated his constitution. Infinite darkness surged from the void. The rays were not swallowed, but drowned in the flood because they had no time to escape. A constitution. Is it a demonic constitution? No, what a horrifying aura. It's indeed a demonic constitution, too scary in fact. 3,700 demonic constitutions are recorded in the Federation, and only 22 are considered the best. I think this is one of the best demonic constitutions. He disappeared in the nothingness and can't be detected any longer. What a weird constitution! All the people outside the battlefield were astonished by such development. Divine constitutions were the best of all. There were 700 different types of divine constitutions in the Federation, while 9 of them were the best overall. People with any of the 9 constitutions were seen as super geniuses in the entire universe. Then, there were the demonic constitutions. There were more than 3,000 kinds of them, and 22 kinds were the best. Down below were the elemental constitutions, which included tens of thousands of kinds. Although Suaping's constitution was not a divine one, it seemed as intimidating as the purple-robed young man's. If it were one of the best demonic constitutions, it would easily crush the normal divine constitutions. Sword technique, Hell of 4 dimensions. Suaping took out the little skeleton's bone saber. His own sword had already lost the power of laws. Although made of hard materials, it was clearly not as good as the purple-robed young man's chains and would probably be shattered with ease. But the bone saber was different. It was made from the remains of a massive fang which would have belonged to an indescribable creature in the chaotic realm of the undead. It had existed for countless years, Suaping had never seen anything harder than that. God of lightning, boom, annihilation, and cutting, the 4 laws were all compressed on the saber, which was ablaze in brilliant light. Break now! Suaping rose to the sky and roared while carrying infinite darkness. He then went against the brilliant spear like a devil from hell. He waved his saber. The entire world was silent. Given the accelerated attack, the saber aura was unbelievably fast, almost appearing like lightning. The man who had launched the lightning wave saber earlier widened his eyes when he saw Suaping's attack. He didn't know how Suaping had achieved it, but that moment of super acceleration was exactly what he had used in the lightning wave saber. Looking at the devilish Suaping, the purple-robed young man was infuriated. He then roared, "You merely have a demonic constitution. Break now!" His divine spear came piercing down from the skies, as if it were about to rip apart the small world. If the spear ever stabbed a planet, it could have pierced it through. After a boom, a saber aura covered the world. All sound was lost at the moment of collision. Then, horrifying sonic waves and blasts were spread out. The earth was shaking, and a sandstorm was raging. The brilliant spear was shattered and reduced to chains. The chains were then dispersed. Some fell to the ground, leaving pits hundreds of meters deep, and some were flung far back into the sky, to later disappear. The purple-robed young man quickly took action and consolidated the space. Then, the dispersing chains were stabilized, gathering once more in his hands. The expression worn by the purple-robed young man had a sudden change when the chains were recalled. One of the chains had lost its light and the power of laws. There was a cut deep enough that the chain was almost falling apart. It was a peak star state secret treasure. The complete law of tearing that was attached to the chains was able to pierce anything. They had also been enhanced by his own divine power. How could they end up this badly damaged? His opponent's weapons would always end up destroyed every time his weapon collided with them. What's with the saber he's holding? The purple-robed young man raised his head and looked at the plain-looking saber in Suaping's hand. The saber was small and didn't even have a grip, but he stared at it gravely. "It seems that you're still not trying your best." The purple-robed young man slightly narrowed his eyes and then looked away. He discovered that he couldn't see through Suaping's real level. It was still the void state. While fighting in such a fierce battle, the man was still able to conceal his level with a disguising technique, which meant that he wasn't using all his strength. For the very first time in his life, his opponent wasn't fully devoted to the battle against him. He took a deep breath. 3 battle pets appeared behind him, all of them were in the beginning phase of the star state. 2 of them were dragons, and 1 was a demon pet. The 3 pets had been trained multiple times. They had a high aptitude and would be able to fight opponents beyond their level, just like the purple-robed young man. "You've forced me to become serious in a duel. Even though you're in the star state, you should feel proud of yourself," said the purple-robed young man. He was praising Suaping, but he still sounded arrogant. He looked down on the star state when he was only in the fate state. His arrogance made the star state cultivators outside of the small world strongly uncomfortable, especially those who had attacked the young master but had to be rescued later. The purple-robed young man didn't summon his pets when he was collectively attacked. And yet, at that moment, he claimed that he was getting serious. He was quite blatant for someone in the fate state, yet he truly had the capability to do so. Suaping stayed silent while staring at him. He simply raised his hand and gathered a saber aura that was even more brilliant and scorching than before. The vortices inside his body trembled again after a pause, unleashing the power of billions of stars. Boom! A river of astral power surged inside his body, and divine power radiated again. Augmentation. Degradation. Scourge of demons. The purple-robed young man made preparations when Suaping attacked. He had summoned the 3 pets not to have them fight for him, but to fight with him. The higher level a battle pet warrior was, the stronger they were. Some of them could even be more terrifying than their battle pets. Instantly, halos of enhancement appeared from a green-scaled dragon and strengthened the purple-robed young man, who became twice as strong. His astral power rose from his body like bubbles. In the meantime, another red dragon used skills to weaken Suaping. The demon pet shrieked and launched a weird attack, which was going to break into Suaping's head and eliminate his soul. Dark Dragon Hound! Suaping roared. The dark dragon hound behind Suaping jumped out and let out the most daunting and magnificent roar that awed the world. Such a roar was beyond what the star state beasts could muster. Earlier on, the dark dragon hound had been unable to imitate the roar of such strong creatures, but it recently became able to since its level had risen. Enhancement and purging skills were launched after the dragon roar was spread out, and the laws of degradation that the red dragon had initiated were blocked. The law of solidity that the dark dragon hound had perceived was set up in front of Suaping as energy shields, along with other laws. At the same time, it enhanced Suaping. Such enhancement skills were very exhausting. While Suaping's aura rose quickly, the dark dragon hound quickly lost its astral power. A soundless competition started. The dark dragon hound was resisting the 2 early star state dragons by itself. The dark dragon hound even seemed to be winning the competition. It had suppressed the 2 battle pets. Suaping's pet had to be a peak star state creature according to the onlookers, so it was nothing unusual. While that purple-robed young man was strong enough to beat enemies higher than his level, his pets would be an unavoidable weakness. The early star state would never compare those at the peak of the star state. Unless he trained his pets and made them as talented as himself. But how would that be possible? That was why the purple-robed young man had been fighting on his own without summoning his pets. He couldn't beat his opponent even if he did. While the dark dragon hound resisted the other dragons, the demonic pet's attack penetrated its defenses and struck Suaping's mind. It was like an attack from another dimension, which hauled Suaping's consciousness into a dark world where demons were screaming and dragging him into an abyss. Inferior creatures, get the hell out of here! Suaping's soul let out a roar of disdain. The force field appeared deep inside his soul. The aura of the great ancient undead creatures in the field drove away the darkness. While facing the ancient undead creatures, the caster of the skill felt that they were standing right in front of them. How magnificent! It was like an ant looking up to see a giant whose body reached the sky. The demonic pet next to the purple-robed young man screamed and trembled. Dark blood flowed out of its 8 eyeballs at the same time. It was a skill recoil. In fact, Suaping didn't launch any attacks, the pet was simply intimidated by the scenes in the force field. The force field could only save what one had seen with one's own eyes, which meant that the human being had seen those great beings before. When the demonic pet cried, it gazed at Suaping in fear with eyes that were still shedding blood, as if he were a horror that should not exist in their world. The purple-robed young man, who was about to attack, was slightly surprised at his pet's emotion. His demonic pet had always been brutal and ferocious. How could it possibly become this scared? However, Suaping was about to attack at the moment, and he had to counterattack. There was no time for him to think. Double sword technique, hell of 4 dimensions. A surge attacked again. He withdrew his gaze from the collapsed darkness back to reality without any delay, as if the previous scourge didn't happen. He continued his attack and pressed his astral power in an unstoppable manner. The power of laws was manifested. This time, there were not 4 laws, but 8. He was able to use Little Skeleton's laws when he merged with it. He borrowed those laws and combined them with his own. So, he essentially had 8 laws. Since the laws overlapped, it wasn't as hard for Suaping to combine them, given that it would have to combine 8 different laws. Sky-slashing chain. Seeing that Suaping was growing in strength by the minute, the purple-robed young man knew that his guess was correct and the guy wasn't trying his best. Infuriated, he roared and attacked. This time, his chain revealed its true self. All the branches of those chains were gone, and there was just one thick chain. He held the chain as if it were a sword or a rod, before he swung it, aiming toward the sky. The end of the chain at the front had 2 laws that destroyed everything in its way. Boom! Another explosion burst out, and the small world shook. There were even more cracks on the shattered land. The air was hot, full of mixed elements. Unordered pieces of laws were splashing everywhere. To everyone's astonishment, the chain was flung back, and the saber aura slashed at the purple-robed young man again. The latter roared and broke the aura with one slap. The saber aura was just an empty shell that was easily broken, but the scene still shocked everyone. Go to hell! The purple-robed young man was truly furious. He took action again after breaking the saber aura. He activated his constitution and healed his wounds, before he charged at Suaping with a horrifying power. That was the advantage of a powerful constitution, which could quickly restore one's strength. However, when he marched toward Suaping, the latter simply stood in midair with cold eyes, just like a great devil. Black air rose from his body, placing him in the middle of darkness. While staying in that space, even the restrictions of the small world seemed to loosen and become corrupted. Little Inferno Dragon, merge with me. Suaping whispered. While inside his body, the white-scaled vast sky thunderous dragon was dismissed, and he was quickly weakened, but the Inferno Dragon which had been waiting for a long time turned into a stream of fire and melded into Suaping's body. After a hum, Suaping's aura was no longer dropping but rising at an even higher speed than before. His strength soared to an appalling height. The strength advancement that a pet could bring to a battle pet warrior depended on the pet's strength. Triple sword technique, hell of 4 dimensions. Suaping activated his constitution. Not just the sorcerer's constitution, but his solar bulwark as well, which also glowed brilliantly. An advantage of the solar bulwark was that it posed no obstacles to divine power or demonic power. They could circulate easily. All in all, 12 laws appeared on Suaping's bone saber. Suaping had passed the 4 laws he had learned on to the little skeleton and the Inferno Dragon. He borrowed the laws from the Inferno Dragon and combined them, thereby tripling the technique's power. The purple-robed young man was shocked by Suaping's soaring aura, wondering what kind of constitution the guy had, to restore him that quickly, making him even stronger than before. Was Suaping still preserving his strength? At that moment, he noticed that Suaping was still in the void state. This person! The purple-robed young man was seething with anger. He gritted his teeth. For the very first time, he felt humiliated. Although the man was a Star State expert, he still found it humiliating to have been defeated. You should die. He gritted his teeth and took out a mirror. The frame of the mirror was black and white. It contained a strange power of laws that was able to make the environment tremble, ever so slightly. What's that? Is it a Star Lord's secret treasure? How is it possible? Fate State warriors can't even hold a Star Lord's treasure, not to mention using it. Outside of the small world, all the Star Lords looked at the mirror in shock and suspicion. The purple-robed young man was not in the mood of letting out arrogant remarks anymore. He felt awful since he was forced to use this ultimate treasure. He wouldn't feel happy even if Suaping was killed. A black air surged on the frame of the mirror when he released it, which later moved to its back. Then, it penetrated the mirror and gathered in front of him as a black mist. In only 1 second, the black mist condensed and formed a hideous dragon, whose skin and scales were gradually revealed. It looked identical to Suaping. Everybody was shocked. Even the Star Lords' faces changed and became solemn. Real Star Lords' treasures were untouchable, even for those in the Star State, not to mention the Fate State. They would not be able to use them. However, the power of faith was flowing out of the mirror. Even if it wasn't a Star Lord's treasure, it had to be a top Star State treasure. Such a secret treasure could be even more valuable than the normal Star Lord's treasures, but it didn't demand a lot of power from its users and could be harnessed by Fate State warriors, such as that purple-robed young man. The Star State experts were also amazed by Suaping's replica. They felt that the clone was almost identical to Suaping himself. Die! The purple-robed young man gloomily sent out an order, and the clone was quickly set into motion. The clone revealed an astonishing astral power the moment it dashed forward. It launched 4 laws, which were exactly those which Suaping had used earlier. The mirror could even copy the target's laws. All the Star State warriors were shocked by this. Anyone could be invincible with nothing but that treasure. How could they possibly beat him? However, someone soon found that, even though the clone had used the same laws as Suaping did, it didn't carry any air of constitution. Hey! The purple-robed young man noticed it too and was rather shocked. His trump card was so horrifying that it could copy creatures below the Star Lord state in every aspect. It could even copy the laws that were very close to the ultimate truth. Therefore, he could let the enemy fight himself by using that mirror. Still, the mirror failed to copy Suaping's constitution? That didn't make sense. The guy's constitution was so powerful that the mirror was unable to copy it. The purple-robed young man was astounded. His own divine constitution was copyable, which was a slap in his own face. The difference suggested that his constitution was not as good as Suaping's. The guy only had a demonic constitution, yet it was better than his divine constitution. Therefore, it had to be a rare and top-quality constitution. Is that all? Suaping slightly raised his eyebrows as he watched the copy approach. It was indeed amazing in its own way, but not nearly enough to beat him. He suddenly stepped out and performed the triple hellish saber again with glowing eyes. The saber aura swept out like a golden galaxy. The clone performed the same saber technique, which contained a tremendous amount of both astral and divine powers. Seeing that the copy attacked, the purple-robed young man quickly commanded, "No." But it was too late. The clone was fighting based on the copied battle experience. That move was indeed the most perfect for a counterattack. However, the clone didn't have a constitution, so it was not nearly as strong as Suaping. After a loud boom, Suaping's saber aura pressed forward and cut the clone to pieces. Suaping found while he attacked that the clone didn't copy his constitution, nor the solar bulwark. He felt he had just cut into tofu. If his solar bulwark would have been copied, even if it still wasn't enough to survive, he would have at least felt some resistance, and at least a body would have been left behind. Come again. Suaping gathered his strength and performed the triple hellish saber once more. The violent saber technique was swept out. Everybody was astounded by his magnificent storage of astral power. That must have been his ultimate skill. How could anyone perform ultimate skills again and again? Not even the Star State people present thought that they had enough astral power to perform the skill that many times consecutively. The purple-robed young man looked awful as he watched the incoming saber aura. He gathered astral power in his palm and roared, "Die!" The mirror rose to the sky and glowed brilliantly. The black and white air on the frame suddenly slithered and broke free, before it moved toward Suaping. The black and white air tore the small world apart, revealing the grey, deep space behind it and ignoring the restrictions of the small world. Power of faith. It's indeed the air of faith. And there's two streams of it. What is the mirror made of? It can store the power of faith. The faces of many star lords contorted, as the attack was powerful enough to hurt them. And yet, the purple-robed young man was only a Fate State warrior. How terrifying! All the Fate State experts on the spaceships were dumbfounded. The black and white air struck across the small world sky like meteors through deep space, heading towards Suaping. Damn it! Outside of the small world, the face of the leader girl changed. It was the power of faith which was way beyond the star state. He has such a secret treasure? How shameless! The leader girl was quite angry. Suaping was already winning without the secret treasure. However, such a trump card had changed the result of the battle. It was impossible for him to resist. However strong Suaping was, he would not resist a power at the Star Lord level. She was about to order the ship to rescue Suaping, but then her eyes widened with disbelief. The other Star Lords noticed it too. All of them looked at the source and were left astounded. A dazzling light was bursting out like a flame in Suaping's hands, and the grey plain-looking bone saber emitted a horrifying aura. It evinced 3 streams of the power of faith. Is that bone saber a top-secret treasure too? All the Star Lords were rendered speechless. It was completely quiet outside of the small world. Now! Suaping roared. He waved the bone saber and launched the power of faith streams with the aura of the triple hellish saber as protection. Suaping was incapable of directly controlling the power of faith. He had to use the bone saber to influence it. Likewise, the purple-robed young man was also incapable of controlling the power. He could only push it with the secret treasure. It was like a tennis game where the secret treasure was the racket and the power of faith was the ball. Once the ball was pushed out, it was no longer possible to change its trajectory. Whether or not it could hit the target depended on aiming. Sky-blocking lock. The purple-robed young man had already taken action before the black and white air flew out. His chains were designed to restrict the enemy, so that the attack could hit the target. He couldn't adjust the trajectory, but he could influence the enemy's location. What? The chains had already reached Suaping and were about to tie him up, but the purple-robed young man was astounded when he saw the incoming 3 streams of faith power. While still in shock, the 2 faith attacks had struck through deep space and collided even faster than a flash. The world was quiet and soundless at the moment of collision. Sonic waves couldn't travel in deep space, but everybody saw that the deep space itself was collapsing. The blast was spreading from the 4th space to the tertiary space. A Star Lord realized what was going on and roared, "Hurry!" The other Star Lords realized what he meant. They quickly took action and strengthened the small world. A streak of golden light dashed out in the midst of those rumbling noises. It was none other than Suaping. He flew at the edge of the blast, and the bones and dragon scales on his skin kept falling apart and regenerating as it worked to block it. The attack was beyond what the star state could muster, easily able to kill any creature of the advanced star state. However, Suaping managed to weather through it and was ready to counterattack, thanks to the bloodline abilities that the little skeleton had just perceived, the Inferno Dragon's scales, and the God of Lightning's law. His bone shield and dragon scales were destroyed again and again. His solar bulwark was glowing as it received the shock. The golden crow illusion behind his back seemed to be screaming. If he were anyone else, he would have focused all his strength on defending himself. However, Suaping went all out and charged brutally. Triple hellish saber. Suaping roared in his heart while he stared at the purple-robed young man on the other side with bloodshot eyes. Golden runes were appearing around that young master. Earlier on, the golden runes had blocked the lightning wave saber. Just one of the golden runes had reduced its power by half. The golden runes were flying out like cheap toilet paper at that moment, flashing around the purple-robed young man. They were quickly torn apart by the blast, but there were so many in number that they formed a shield and protected the young man behind them. Nobody expected Suaping to keep attacking during the blast, which could have wiped him out easily if he wasn't cautious. However, he managed to resist without using any secret treasures, and he was still attacking. Is he crazy? He's mad. He seems determined to kill that guy. I have to say, it's an excellent opportunity for offense as long as he endures that attack. But still, he's too bold. Look at the Fate State guy. Isn't he too extravagant? Damn it, he's using such top defensive secret treasures like plain paper. Does his family own a paper factory? He was surely born in a rich family. Him competing over the Tree of Laws with us is beyond unfair. Outside of the small world, all the cultivators in the Star State had complicated feelings. They were shocked by Suaping's madness, and jealous of the purple-robed young man's lush display of wealth. Right then, Suaping was moving at the edge of the blast in a weird route. His triple hellish saber was aimed at a weakness and reached the purple-robed young man instantly. The latter, still behind the golden runes, had no time to detect what was going on outside, but he had a strong premonition and narrowed his eyes when the saber aura reached him. Then through a gap in the flying runes he saw that Suaping was charging straight at him with brutality and resolve in his eyes. This guy is a lunatic. That was the purple-robed young man's first response. He was shocked by Suaping's relentless way of fighting. Is a Tree of Laws really worth it? He was also angered by this. Ever since childhood, he had always gotten everything he wanted. A Tree of Laws wasn't worth fighting with his life on the line, but he loathed failure. You think I'm a flower that grew up in a greenhouse? Just bring it on, the purple-robed young man roared with blood surging in his eyes. He fully activated the bloody demon immortality technique and even ignited his constitution. A bloody fire rose to the sky and surrounded his body. Bloody stripes appeared and entangled him, making his skin red and his hair flutter. I will suppress all lives with demonic blood, the purple-robed young man roared. The almost complete laws on his chains were burning fiercely. This time, he borrowed the laws of his pets. However, due to the limits of his own cultivation, his pets didn't understand the laws as well as he did. Even though they were ultimate pets, they only had limited aptitudes after all. Boom! A chain descended towards Suaping from the sky like a sharp saber. It had a combination of multiple laws, ablaze in bloody light. It happened too fast. The bloody chain was deviated and weakened by the blast when launched. It was very hard to control. On the other hand, the laws and aura of Suaping's triple hellish saber were quickly falling apart too. They also had trouble enduring the blast. Nevertheless, the two attacks still collided, as both parties had tried their best to control them. Come again! Kill! Suaping roared. The vortices inside his cells revolved fast, unleashing furious astral power. He also made use of the blast's astral power and absorbed it. Not caring about the result, he launched the triple hellish saber again and again. Suaping moved forward, cutting a path open with the saber auras, quickly approaching the purple-robed foe. The purple-robed young man's chain dispelled Suaping's saber aura and won in that collision, but he was shocked to see Suaping's new attacks. This guy has enough astral power to repeatedly throw such powerful attacks? Is there an ocean of astral power inside his body? The rich youngster gritted his teeth and controlled the chain again. It was evenly matched with the following saber auras, but was later flung back. The bloody light and the power of laws it had were gone, indicating that the secret treasure had been heavily damaged. It would have to be reforged and nurtured. The purple-robed young man gazed at Suaping with a hideous face, deep killing intent flashing in his eyes. Great! I'll show you what melee skills are. He pocketed his chain and then put on a pair of claw-shaped gloves, also top secret treasures. Melee skills were very important in the Federation, many battle pet warriors had learned them. Astral power, merging techniques, and melee skills could grant extraordinary strength when a warrior was able to grasp them. Some of the smaller planets were too imbalanced. Some were focused on melee skills, some on merging techniques, and others such as the blue planet were devoted to astral power. Very few warriors excelled in melee skills. The blast was finally dispersed, only leaving some lingering effects. The aftermath was so hot that it was able to melt rocks or vaporize a sea, just like the core of a planet would. The air inside the small world was twisted by the high temperature. The purple-robed young man resisted the heat with his techniques, but Suaping simply strode towards him and ignored it with his body's resistance to heat. Even though the high temperature was also hurting him, the damages caused were automatically healed by the god of lightning's law. He didn't need to do anything. Swoosh! The young contender aimed his fist towards Suaping's face. It was fierce and fast, like a dagger. While he punched, his body shook and became 3 clones that lunged at Suaping at the same time, throwing countless punches. Suaping widened his eyes and divine light burst out. He suddenly turned around and kicked. Then, all the illusionary fists were gone, and the purple-robed young man was kicked thousands of meters back. A golden rune on his chest had blocked Suaping's kick for him, but its force had still left him in pain. How was that possible? The young man was shocked. Nobody could have identified his true self that fast. The people outside the small world were also shocked, not expecting Suaping to be that good. The guy's fist technique and clones were flawless, and still, he was seen through. How did he find that guy's true self? I felt like he attacked without even paying attention. Oh my god, are they super geniuses in melee skills too? The Star State onlookers found it hard to believe. Many people practiced melee skills, but they had other priorities. It was impossible for them to become adept at everything. However, it didn't seem to be a problem for the 2 contenders. Was that what made them geniuses? Look, that man is still displaying a void state level, which means that he's not trying his best. F***ck. That's true. What a horrifying monster. We're both in the star state, but why is our gap so huge? I feel like killing myself. Stop talking about the star state. His fate state opponent is already awesome enough. He has to save the dignity of the star state for us. Inside the small world, after Suaping kicked the purple-robed young man away, bone spikes grew all over his body and on his hands. He strode over with divine light. He approached his target, then suddenly used a super acceleration with strength and speed enhancements. Boom! He became significantly faster and punched his opponent in the face. The young man's pupils shrunk. He raised his hand, as he tried to block the punch. In the meantime, the demonic snake on his back moved and opened its mouth to attack. Suaping, however, made a flash move to the side, before he punched the demonic snake's head. The beast obviously didn't see it coming, that the human would foresee its attack and even retaliate. There was a boom, then the bone spikes on Suaping's fist penetrated the demonic snake's scales. The beast could only scream. The purple-robed young man was even more enraged. He felt that his moves were being easily read. He tried to recall the demonic snake, but Suaping suddenly seized it and opened his mouth, launching a shocking roar. Obviously, the purple-robed young man didn't expect that Suaping was capable of performing sonic techniques. His head was dizzy for a moment. A secret treasure in his head removed the dizziness moments after, restoring his rationality. Suaping had already punched the demonic snake multiple times during that brief pause, making it bleed profusely. The young man was incensed as he fought back, while Suaping easily dodged his attacks, thanks to the super acceleration. It was definitely a marvelous skill for melee battles. Besides, Suaping had tons of fighting experience in the cultivation sites. Only the ancient gods of rules such as Joanna could best him in terms of combat. Is this what you're confident of? How childish! With disdain in his eyes, So Ping punched the purple-robed young man multiple times with overwhelming strength. A golden rune flew out and blocked each of the punches to protect him. The young man was shocked and infuriated. He was unhurt thanks to the golden runes, but it was still humiliating. He had been crushed in terms of melee skills. All his attacks had been seen through. It didn't make any sense. Don't be too cocky. I'll slay you like a chicken when I break through to the star state. The purple-robed young man was flung hundreds of meters back by Sua Ping's punch, and he looked awful. Sua Ping raised his eyebrows and sneered, "Let's see if you're capable of advancing your cultivation." Considering the purple-robed young man's abilities, Sua Ping could ascertain that he wouldn't have been a match if his opponent was indeed in the star state. However, Sua Ping was also growing. That was why he wanted the Tree of Laws so desperately. The purple-robed young man was so angry that he stopped talking and took out his chain again. Having been crushed by Sua Ping in the melee battle, he would rather use it until the end. He had almost run out of his golden runes. He would have to reveal his trump card if they were used up. But if he exposed that trump card, someone might covet it and try to kill him to get it. Sua Ping simply swung his bone saber and counter-attacked after seeing the chain. He had a profound amount of astral power. The star vortices inside his hells had been absorbing the wandering power in the air. The melee battle a moment earlier didn't consume too much energy, it was actually an opportunity for him to replenish his reserves. The little skeleton had also been helping him absorb the power of the undead from the void, then transform it into astral power. The chain and the saber collided again. Another fierce bout took place inside the small world, but this time, neither did Sua Ping nor the purple-robed young man display other techniques. They simply launched their most powerful attacks again and again. Both of them wanted to defeat the other, but they were evenly matched. It would be hard to make the kill with one attack. This was a time when energy storage was the most important, since the most powerful attacks were being launched continuously. The people outside the small world were shocked to see such a long-lasting battle. They felt that the battle wouldn't end until one party ran out energy. However, both men seemed to be monsters with inexhaustible reserves. Any star state expert would have been exhausted by then. "You think you have more energy than I do?" With disdain in his eyes, the purple-robed young man took out a divine fruit and swallowed it. Soon after, the fruit nurtured his dried internal system like an elixir and filled him with astral power again. Sua Ping was slightly gloomy after seeing this, but simply kept silent and attacked again and again. 5 minutes later, the purple-robed young man ran out of astral power again. He grimly took out a second divine fruit. 9 minutes later, he looked awful as he took out a third divine fruit. He had enough of them, but the more frequently he ate them, the less effective they would be. The last divine fruit was used up in only 2 minutes. Damn it! The purple-robed young man forced Sua Ping to retreat with the chain, but felt angry and frustrated when Sua Ping came back aggressively. Is that the profound storage of energy in the star state? He had already swallowed 7 divine fruits, yet Sua Ping still seemed to have inexhaustible astral power. For the first time, the purple-robed young man realized the huge gap between the fate state and the star state. The gap was exasperating to him. He even thought that he would have killed his opponent if the latter weren't a level higher than himself. He had never used his level as an excuse for failure before, which he thought was only what weaklings did. Still, he was thinking that at the moment. The very emergence of such a thought was what infuriated him the most, because it meant that his proud heart was giving in. "Go to hell!" the purple-robed young man roared in anger and swung his chains, unleashing laws. He was determined to go for attrition. He had divine fruits and other medications. He was confident to see it through. Bang! Sua Ping was still attacking with his full strength. He knocked the chain again with the triple hellish saber and pressed close to the purple-robed young man. His pores opened when he attacked, the star vortices in his cells were revolving, releasing astral power and absorbing the nearby astral power into his body. The Chaos Star chart gave him much more astral power than people in his rank were able to get. Moreover, Suaping had been through 100 heavenly tribulations, which purified and condensed his astral power. One stream of his astral power was enough to punch through a mountain. In terms of amount, he had 100 times as much astral power as someone in the void state normally had, and 20 times as much as the fate state did. Although the purple-robed young man's divine constitution and the materials used for his upbringing gave him much more astral power than people in the fate state normally had, he didn't have nearly as much astral power as Suaping did. Bang! Bang! With glowing eyes, Suaping waved his saber and fought with increased fierceness. The little skeleton continued transmitting astral power into him. It had made use of the law of death to take in a tremendous amount of undead energy, to then transform it with the god of lightning's law, which almost gave it inexhaustible energy. It could also absorb the energy of the undead from the deeper voids with the bloodline abilities of the skeleton kings if it were in the outside world where space wasn't locked. The skeleton could be infinitely resurrected with undead energy. Bang! The purple-robed young man hurriedly blocked the attack. His chain was quivering, he felt he was running out of astral power again. Again, he was forced to eat another divine fruit. Hardly had he eaten the divine fruit when his body trembled painfully. His astral power was gradually restored, but his body didn't seem able to take it any longer. How is this possible? My divine constitution is declining first? The young man widened his eyes in shock. He had run out of physical strength, and his body couldn't withstand the stimulation brought by the divine fruits any longer. The foundation of his constitution would be affected if he continued. On the other hand, Suaping was still fighting like a ferocious, tireless beast. Is this the difference between me and a Star State warrior? The purple-robed young man gritted his teeth in frustration. He didn't think he would be weaker than Suaping if they would have been on the same level. He looked at the tree of laws far away. All the fruits on the tree contained laws. The young man seemed regretful. It was the very first time he couldn't get what he wanted. Do I have to use my secret treasure? However, that item is mostly for defense, and if I expose it... The purple-robed young man looked at the Star Lords outside of the small world. It could be a useful trump card, but it was an ultimate treasure which could invoke the Star Lord's jealousy. Exactly at this moment, a loud roar burst out, "You dare to let your mind wander? On your knees!" The purple-robed young man suddenly raised his head and saw Suaping kicking him. He hurried and waved his chain to block the attack and respond with hundreds of punches. After a loud boom, the chain was knocked aside, and all the fist auras were gone. He was flung back, then he fell to the ground. Suaping was blown hundreds of meters back, but then he came back at an even higher speed. Die! The purple-robed young man quickly blocked him with his chain. Suaping waved his bone saber and knocked the chain aside. Not only was the bone saber hard and sharp, it also contained powers that were incomprehensible and intangible, which caused a deep crack on the extraordinary chain. The purple-robed young man was devastated when he saw the crack. He shouted, "What's your name? You don't deserve to know." The young man almost vomited blood. It was the first time anyone had ever said that to him. "I don't deserve it. My master is an ascendant expert." And it wasn't just his master's backing, he would also be able to fight against Star Lords by the time he advanced into the Star State. Once he became a Star Lord, he would be able to subdue his peers and talk to those in the Ascendant State on equal terms. It was safe to say that he had a promising future. He was destined to be a new star that would illuminate the entire Federation. And yet, this guy claims that I don't deserve it. "You're too arrogant," said the purple-robed young man, gnashing his teeth. As he looked down at him, Suaping said, "I'm only stating a fact. You may know my name when you're capable of fighting me without external help." "You?" the purple-robed young man said angrily, "say that to me again when my level is the same as yours." If he weren't a level lower, would he have needed the items or the divine fruits? Well, well. Suaping looked at him as if he were an idiot. If your level were the same as mine, you couldn't have endured one attack from me. The purple-robed young man was so infuriated that he almost lost his mind. Is it really something to beat someone with a lower level? He had already shown marvelous techniques and defeated many Star State experts. Did this guy not see it? Once he reached the Star State, he would be 10 times stronger than he was at the moment. Do you dare to tell me your name? I'll fight you again when I reach the Star State, said the purple-robed young man furiously. Our battle will be more enjoyable to me by then. Suaping nodded and agreed. However, you don't deserve to know my name yet. Wait until you reach the Star State. You. The purple-robed young man was so infuriated that his face turned blue. He took a deep breath and stopped asking. Given his background, he could easily find out who Suaping was based on the alliance he came from. Do you think I can't identify you if you don't say your name? I'll remember you. I'll give this tree of laws to you, so that you grow faster. I hope you won't disappoint me as my sparring partner when I reach the Star State, said the purple-robed young man coldly. So that I grow faster? Suaping raised his brows and rolled his eyes. This guy is too cocky. There was nothing else he could do, yet he had to end it by showing off. Say that again when you reach the Star State. You're not good enough yet. Suaping sneered. The purple-robed young man looked at him thoughtfully and repressed his fury in silence. Outside the small world, everybody was still shocked by the recently finished battle. They didn't expect that the battle would last that long. It had to be noted that the two guys had fought while using ultimate skills the whole time and having their constitution fully activated. It seemed that they had stayed in their peak statuses for too long. Suaping was even more shocking. The purple-robed young man swallowed 7 divine fruits, yet Suaping still won the war of attrition. It almost seemed like he had an inexhaustible storage of astral power. Is that guy connected to a sea of stars? It's over. It's finally over. Phew. I feel like it's been an entire year. That was so fierce. Are the battles at the peak of the Star State all like that? The guy who failed should be proud. He was only in the Fate State. Indeed. Considering his strength, even some of the people at the peak of the Star State might have been defeated by him. It's so horrifying to see how someone in the Fate State crushed so many Star State experts. But that Star State big shot is awesome too. He didn't even go all out to suppress that monster. Indeed. It's a good thing that he won. It would have been humiliating if a Fate State warrior would have routed all the Star State contenders. Tisk, tisk. I feel like watching that battle was better than training in seclusion for 100 years. I've learned so much. Yes, what an eye-opener. All the Star State warriors who saw the fight made astonished remarks. The battle was over. Both Suaping and the purple-robed young man had amazed them. The latter remained arrogant after being defeated, but nobody dared to underestimate him. It was terrifying and even unbelievable for someone in the Fate State to achieve that. Such a genius was bound to glow and receive everyone's attention in the Federation. Of course, provided that he didn't accidentally get killed during his growth. Mr. Singh has failed. His opponent is also a monster. Although the guy had the advantage of his Star State cultivation, few of his peers are as strong as him. No wonder we can't see through him. Indeed, I'm sure he was as strong as that guy when he was in the Fate State, another monstrous genius. There are too many horrifying guys in this world. All the Star Lords were solemn as they conversed with glittering eyes. Some people treated Suaping solemnly, committing his face and aura to memory. While the purple-robed young man was talented, he was only in the Fate State anyway, and still had a long way to go. On the other hand, Suaping was enigmatic, but obviously in the Star State. He was only one step away from the Star Lords. All of them had the firm belief that Suaping would never be stuck in a bottleneck that would prevent him from becoming a Star Lord. Once he broke through, he would definitely distinguish himself among the Star Lords. I didn't know that such a big shot had joined our alliance. He's definitely a genius in the star state. Tisk, we have another person we can count on. The heaven-destroying celestial? Is that his nickname? He truly has the power to destroy heaven itself. Almighty Heaven Destroyer! Almighty Heaven Destroyer! The members of the Alliance of Stars were thrilled and cheered happily. Their celebrating ruckus made the members of the Uhuang and the Thousand Feathers Alliances glanced at them, angry with all the uncomfortable flattery being spouted. However, they had to admit that the guy in the small world was indeed a terrifying man. We've got the Tree of Laws. The leader girl didn't expect this at all. She could tell that the purple-robed young man had a powerful backing and would surely have other trump cards. If an ascendant warrior was his protector, his hidden aces would definitely include more than just a secret treasure able to contain the power of faith. He should also have a defensive secret treasure that could keep him safe from Star Lords, or some massive destructive treasure. She was actually quite familiar with such treasures. After all the seniors in her circle had trained their juniors in the same way. It would have been demeaning if they didn't prepare such gifts for them. Whoosh! The leader girl relocated Suoping and noticed Father Time, who had been hiding inside a golden turtle shell in the small world. She went and she rescued him too. The collision of the power of faith had terrified Father Time, who fled faster than ever before to hide in a corner of the small world. There he managed to stay safe, trying his best to protect himself. He had felt that his turtle shell could have been destroyed if he got involved in the last battle. Everybody, according to the rules, the Tree of Laws belongs to me now, declared the leader girl earnestly after relocating Suoping. The Star Lords looked at each other, but there was nothing they could do. It was impossible for them to go back on their word, they had to keep their dignity. Besides, even if anyone did have second thoughts, getting benefits was not guaranteed. After all, there were many people interested in that tree. The leader girl ignored them and raised her hand, invoking a magnificent stream of power of faith, which plucked the Tree of Laws as well as the soil around its roots and relocated them inside her small world. Many Star Lords narrowed their eyes and felt intimidated when they saw the magnificent power of faith she had released. New member, job well done. I'll remember your name. Haha. The leader girl turned around to Suoping and laughed, without caring about her image. I'll keep the Tree of Laws for now, in case anyone covets it. I'll look for you later to give you the fruits. Well. Suoping looked at her but had to accept the proposal. There were too many Star Lords present. Even if he made a run for it with the tree, he would still be in danger. If some of the Star Lords were insane enough to abandon other treasures inside the divine residence and choose to secretly chase after him, there would be nothing he could do to resist them. Nobody could rob the tree since the leader girl was keeping the tree for him.